Before I even saw the credits, I knew that Dave Filoni was involved in this, because if there's one thing about Dave Filoni, is he's gonna put Godzilla into Star Wars. Hello there. Let's talk about my favorite episode of The Mandalorian Season 3, Chapter 23, The Spies. So the question is, who are the spies? We know that our first spy is Elia, but who are the other ones? If there's more than one, or if there's one, I have some ideas. We'll get right into it. Last week I didn't make an episode for Chapter 22, Guns for Hire, and it wasn't because I didn't like that episode, it's just I got caught up in all of the celebration news. I have a card right here if you want to watch my video about all the celebration news, and watch it after this video. But I actually really liked Chapter 22. I loved that Luzzo was in it. I thought it was so cool because I know that she is a big Grogu fan, just like me, so it was just kind of cool getting to see her have these moments with Grogu. And it felt very Star Wars to me. It was very silly. It was very like pulp fiction-y. It was a lot of fun. I think that it was a very like George Lucas forward episode with all the droid drama, the droid bar, and I thought that it had a lot of really cute moments with details like the guards wearing stormtrooper armor and all the repurposed Empire droids. I thought it was a really good episode, but that is all I'm going to say about that now. Before we get started, if you're new here, hi, I'm Crystal, as in Kyber, and this is where the fun begins. My Star Wars mug of the day is Darth Vader. I think every Star Wars fan has this mug. My fun little silly drink today is the Olipop Lemon Ginger. Everyone keeps talking about Olipop. I really want to try it. I heard this is the best flavor. I mean, it's not bad, I'll finish it, but would I get another one? Probably not. Hang out and do makeup together and talk about The Mandalorian. If you're interested in any of the products that I'm using today, I will have them listed in the description down below, so you can check that out if you want. This week's episode opens on the lower levels of Coruscant, and I love this sequence. I thought that it looked so cool. It was so Blade Runner, but Star Wars. Love the way it looked. I love the ambiance, and I love the music. That was something I really liked about this episode, was the music. So we're following our first spy, Elia, and she is meeting with Moff Gideon via holo projection in like a creepy back alley. She is confirming that there is an escaped Moff Gideon, and she is working for him. And she also confirms that the pirates on Navarro were working for the Fallen Empire. When she tells Moff Gideon that the pirates were taken down by Mandalorians, and he says, which Mandalorians, I think that's our first hint as to who the other spies are. We also get a look at Moff Gideon's lair, which upon the second rewatch we realize is on Mandalore. We see him walk through his lair. We kind of get a sense of like what's going on there. He has cloning vats, so he's still working on his Snoke clone, or what we think is a Snoke clone. And we also see that he has a lot of security. He has his stormtroopers wearing Beskar, lining the halls, and like this crazy security system. And honestly, like, he's so dramatic and he's so scared. It's pretty funny. Just a drama queen, and I love it. So Moff Gideon walks into a Shadow Council meeting with some deep cut characters. We have Captain Paleon, who is Thrawn's right-hand man. And we also get Brendel Hux, who is Armitage Hux's father from the sequel trilogy. I really liked this scene because it was like so classic villain circle scene. Like, it reminded me a lot of Austin Powers. Do you guys remember Austin Powers? There's some very obvious tension happening in the council, and I really liked this because I think it shows that even though they are working towards the same goal to rebuild the Empire and, you know, take over the galaxy, I think that it adds a lot of layers to what's going on in the story and to the bad guys. I think this power struggle is just very interesting between them. Next, we get such a cool shot of the Mandalorians coming back to Navarro with a Imperial light cruiser, and they have a huge mythosaur painted on the bottom of the ship, and I thought that was so cool. I really love how they make the ships look so big and so huge. It reminds me a lot of Rogue One and what Rogue One did for like the cinematography in Star Wars. Like, they just made everything like so massive and so scary and intimidating. Two Mandalorian groups finally meet, and of course there's tension between them. I mean, it's to be expected. But I really like this tension between the two Mandalorian groups because it's just so much, there's just so much attitude between them, and it's just so obviously like fueled by like ego and again like this need to fight for the creed. And I feel like that's something that's been kind of like missing from the Mandalorians this whole season. Like, as we've gotten to know the Mandalorians, we know that the Mandalorians are fighters. Like, that's like their culture. And I think this episode really demonstrates them having this like fighter heart. Grief Karga gifts IG-11 to Din Djarin, and when IG-11 first walks up, I thought that it was like our IG-11, but it's for Grogu. And at first, I didn't really like this. Like, initially, I was pretty hesitant. I was like kind of unsure about giving Grogu his own droid to navigate with. But the yes and no gag like got me. Like, that sold me. I was like, okay, that's cute. And the way that they did it was really cute too. I thought that the yes no thing was like so clever and so cute and such a good way to like involve Grogu more into the story and like give him a little bit more sentience, I guess. He's more like a sassy dog. If anyone knows, like, what are those like talking dogs that like press the buttons? And I love how much of a menace Grogu is, like even more so in this IG-11 droid situation. He's just such a menace. It is so funny. I loved Grogu's reaction to seeing the IG-11 being piloted by the little Anellian. He gives like this cute little excited laugh and then stands up and all this candy falls off of him. Like, it is so funny and so cute. And I think it's so cute when Grogu tests his newfound independence by like going and harassing a street vendor for food. If there's one thing about Grogu, is he's gonna get a snack. So that evening we go back to a tense and brooding Mandalorian dinner tribe where it is so awkward because, you know, one tribe can take off their helmets and eat, and the other ones are just like watching them. Especially because we learn that they have to like go hide and eat in like shame. To break the tension a little bit, Bo calls for both tribes to come together and to help reclaim Mandalore. Of course, Din is the first one to volunteer. We all knew that he has her back, and this is kind of like their story. And I love that the other Mandalorians that volunteer do it out of ego. Like, they're all doing it like out of spite of each other. A few more Mandalorians to join, as well as the armorer. So I still don't know if the armorer is a good guy or a bad guy. Like, I'm still figuring it out. Part of me thinks that she's a good guy, and I don't know, we're just like reading way too much into it. So the plan is all the Mandalorians are going to go to Mandalore and park above the planet while this small group of scouts are going to go look for the forge. And then from there, once it's safe and secure, they're going to start rebuilding Mandalore from there. And the reason they're going for the forge is because the forge is supposed to be like the heart of Mandalore. Like, it's really the thing that is going to help reunite all these lost Mandalorians together. The Mandalorians are very symbolic people, hence the Darksaber, the Mythosaur, and the Forge. As Bo and her team is scouting Mandalore, the surface of Mandalore, they run into what look like pirates, but are surviving Mandalorians from the Purge that just so happen to live on this planet. No Bo-Katan, and they have no animosity towards her for leaving them and abandoning Mandalore. And I just want to say right now that I think that they are the spies. I decide to like have dinner with them and catch up and, you know. And on the ship we have this moment between Bo and Din. And it is like moonlit, they're being vulnerable with each other, and we even get a pledge of, like, Din pledges to follow Bo-Katan to like the edge of the earth, basically. And he does it in this like very noble, like, I'm a knight for my like queen sort of thing, but I'm just saying. By the way, if you're not shipping, you might as well, because it kind of feels like their endgame at this point. They were using we statements, okay? They were saying we this, us. And there's just like So much yearning. I'm yearning. I don't know if the characters are yearning. I mean, it kind of sounded like Din was yearning, but I'm yearning. So the surviving Mandalorians say they know exactly where the forge is and that they can bring them there, while the armorer brings the sick and the weak up to the ship waiting. And I just want to say, don't you think that's like a little suspicious that these Mandalorians know exactly where the forge is, which happens to be right next to like a huge Imperial base, and they didn't know that? So even when the armorer is flying the sick and the weak up to the main ship, the way that the shots are, it seems like something is going to happen. Like I kind of was expecting there to be like an Empire ship waiting for her when she like broke out of the clouds, or like now that I'm thinking about it, or I was expecting her to be like piloting the ship and then one of the other Mandalorians, like the surviving Mandalorians, comes up behind her and like takes the ship from her or something. So we're back with the Mandalorians, and we see them get into a fight over a game, which I think is so funny. Like, I honestly love the Mandalorians in this episode because I just feel like that is so them. That is like so Mandalorian of them. Because even though they're fighting and there's like a lot of tension between the two tribes, they're still comrades. And we see that between Axe Woves and Paz Vizsla. Like they're the ones fighting. But when their ship is attacked by this Godzilla-like monster, they save Grogu. Like they both carry Grogu out of there. The Mandalorians are attacked by this huge, like I said, Godzilla-looking monster thing. And before I even saw the credits, I knew that Dave Filoni was involved in this, because if there's one thing about Dave Filoni, is he's gonna put Godzilla into Star Wars. So the Mandalorians retreat into like a cave to go underground, and it just so happens that is where the forge is. Suspicious. I really like the shot of the forge. The episode had so many beautiful shots. I think it was like the prettiest episode of The Mandalorian so far. Everything just felt so cinematic and so beautiful and grand. But before anything really happens with the forge, they hear jetpacks, and at first I thought it was more Mandalorian survivors, and I was like pretty excited about that. I'm like, oh my god, all the Mandalorians are coming together, like this is so cool. But it ended up being stormtroopers. They have to fight these stormtroopers that have Beskar armor on. I also thought it was suspicious that when the Mandalorians were fighting these stormtroopers, that the surviving Mandalorians, or like the rogue Mandalorians, whatever you want to call them, fell off the cliff while it was happening. So they weren't even around for the fight, and they didn't even get injured. They just like fell off the cliff, and they have jetpacks on, so they didn't like get hurt. But I thought that was suspicious. That was actually my first little guess that they might be the bad guys, because I was like, why did they just fall off the cliff? Interesting. When our Mandalorians are pursuing the stormtroopers into the, like, further into the cave mountain thing, and I see that they walk into like the iconic Imperial lighting, and I gave an audible gasp. Like I was like audibly out loud to myself, no. Like I could not believe it. The door closes and separates most of the Mandalorians from Din and a few other Mandalorians, and Din is captured, and we get the descent of Moff Gideon, who is wearing this Mandalorian Beskar Dark Trooper hybrid suit. You know who else has horns on their helmet? The armor and Death Watch. So I just thought that was interesting. I think that it could be like a red herring. Poe uses her dark saber to cut a hole in the back of the little holding cell that they're in, so that way they can escape. And I was so mad when Paz Vizsla was like, you guys go, because I was like, he's gonna stay behind. And he stayed behind. He like sacrificed himself for the greater good, I guess. But I was so mad because the whole time, you know, he's fighting all these Mandalorians. He could have definitely made it out. Like, he definitely could have made it out alive. Dude, you have a son. Like, you just like went on this epic mission to save your son, and now you're gonna like leave him by himself. The whole time that Paz is like fighting the stormtroopers and then the Praetorian guards, I just kept being like, You're a father. You're a parent. What are you doing? Get out of there. He could have made it out, is what I'm saying. Death was very heroic. It gave me Boromir vibes from Lord of the Rings. And yes, I'm a Lord of the Rings girly too. And another thing that like irked me about Paz Vizsla's death is that like no one even saw him die. Like no one witnessed it. No one like witnessed this heroism, this demonstration by him. And it just like hurt even more. Like he died alone. He died by himself. Nobody was like calling for him to like have him stop or be saved or whatever. And I was really sad about that. And that is where the episode ends. I don't really know where we're gonna go with this show. I really liked this episode. It was definitely my favorite episode of the season. I really think this episode had like a lot of positive things about it. It had good storytelling, it had really great directing, and it really shows. I think that this episode had a lot of heart and it had a lot of subtext, which I felt like this season has been missing in general. I really don't know how we're gonna wrap up this season. We only have one episode left and we have a lot of loose ends to tie. And so I'm kind of hoping this final episode isn't going to be too rushed. Will we get Din Djarin back? Who's gonna save him? Is it gonna be Bo-Katan? Is it going to be Grogu? What's gonna happen with Moff Gideon? Is Thrawn gonna come and like put Moff Gideon in his place? Is Din gonna defeat him? Is Bo gonna defeat him? I can't tell you, but... And I'm really looking forward to discussing it with you guys next week. If you guys have any thoughts or predictions about how the season is going to end, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to read them and hang out and chat with you guys. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and this is the way. Bye. Oh my gosh. Grief Karga gifts IG11 to... why can I not speak today? Oh my gosh.